Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hi there, my name is Christopher Pickett. I'm a multidisciplinary artist living in Brooklyn, New York. I'm a full-time tattoo artist and illustrator, and I'm also a tabletop role-playing game creator and board game writer. You can find my work on Instagram under @Pickett_tattoos. That's PICKETT_tattoos. Today I'm going to be talking to you about one of my favorite games of all time, which is Caves of Qud. This is a science fantasy roguelike by Freehold Games Studios. This game is available on Mac and PC, I think both through Steam. But yeah, like I said, it's a traditional roguelike, but it takes all of the elements that you might expect from a traditional roguelike, like permanent death of your character, randomly generated levels or dungeons, things like that. Crazy level of difficulty and a high learning curve, complex character creation and complex ways in which you can kind of interact with the world around you. Top-down, turn-based, all that stuff that you expect from a traditional roguelike. But it also blends it with a lot of the cool elements that a lot of people really love about open world games like Breath of the Wild or Skyrim, where there is a fixed overworld map with certain locations that always stay in the same place, even if their individual levels are kind of randomly generated. But also just, open world exploration. There's a loose storyline that you can follow, but really it's up to you to define who your character is in the world, what they do, and how they interact with it. The world that your character inhabits is a kind of post-apocalyptic world where you're living in the ruins of a once great society that had a lot of high technology and things like that. But really the thing that defines kind of the experience of Qud is just scarcity. Water is scarce, food is scarce. People are just trying to kind of survive. And in doing so, your character makes their way through a bunch of different landscapes. There's like the Great Salt Desert, there's jungles, there's ruins of ancient metropolises, there's all kinds of crazy locations that you can explore, and all kinds of ancient technology that you can find. I really love the way that it blends kind of low tech and high tech, how there's this constant kind of clash or tension between the two, which allows you to meet all kinds of weird NPCs. There's water vine farmers that you'll meet in one town, and then goat folk that you meet in another. And then, if you make it far enough in the game, you're meeting like sentient robots and other mutants who have psychic abilities. And there's just all kinds of possibility within that, which I think is really fun and really interesting. One of my favorite ways that the setting is kind of expressed is honestly just through character creation. Right off the bat, at the beginning of the game, you get to choose between basically two different approaches. You can either be a mutated human who's basically just been out surviving in the wastelands and, kind of background radiation has changed the gene pool over time. So you can have all of these really interesting mutations. Or you can choose to be what's called a true kin, which is a human who's grown up in kind of a sheltered arcology. And so you don't get like mutant powers and things like that, but you do have cybernetic implants, which you can put in there. Both the mutations and the cybernetic implants that you can get, there's just a massive amount of variety. You can have, for the mutations, you can have extra arms, extra legs. You can have even extra heads, wings, beaks, fur, quills that come out of your body, just all of these possibilities. But you can also have mental mutations, which allow you to do things like shoot lasers with your mind or control other people's minds or put up force walls and things like that, kind of psychic abilities. The cybernetic implants are also really cool. There's different kind of armored skins that you can have. There are skins that allow you to avoid different types of, like thermal damage or, implants that make your tendons faster or allow you to see the hit points of NPCs that are aggressive towards you and things like that. So just right off the bat, like even just in creating your character, you get this tension between scarcity and plenty and low tech and high tech and all of this stuff that really defines the world that you're living in. Character growth throughout the game is really interesting too. There's not like set paths or classes or things like that. When you're creating your character, you can kind of choose backgrounds that define your starting stats, your starting equipment, things like that you have a basic understanding of. But as you move through the game, you choose the skills that you apply. And one of the cool things is that it's not just combat skills. There's a lot of skills that are based around survival, around pathfinding, and also around things like etiquette, which is actually a really big, important part of the game as well. Another thing that really defines the setting, again, just going back to this like idea and this sense of scarcity that kind of looms over you the whole time you're playing the game. Water is not only something that you need to survive, much like in a lot of traditional roguelikes, you can get thirsty, you get hungry, you have to cook meals for yourself, and you have to make sure that you're not becoming dehydrated, because you can actually die from that in the game. So water is something that you need to survive, but it's also the in-game currency. You're not using gold, you're not using dollars, you're not using a separate currency. Everything is based around water and how much water you have in the game, which I think is just a brilliant way of really driving home the feeling that you're living in a world where resources are limited. So yeah, I mean, you're using it, you're drinking it as time goes on. You just kind of your character passively drinks it as they get thirsty. But then it's also your currency to buy the equipment that you need to survive, to buy weapons, to buy armor, to buy various gadgets and things like that, as well as food and other items. But then the third thing that you can do with water is you can actually engage in a water sharing ritual with certain NPCs who are basically representatives of factions within the game. And as you're playing, you kind of learn that there's hundreds and hundreds of factions in the game. You don't even meet most of them in my experience, but the ones that you do meet, they can help you, they can hinder you, they can teach you skills, they can tell you secrets about the world, the locations of different places, things like that, or the history of the world that you're in, which I think is really neat. But in order to get to that point, you have to increase your standing with these factions, again, by doing a water sharing ritual with key NPCs or by completing quests, things like that. But, going back to kind of character growth, having skills in etiquette, knowing the right things to say, stuff like that, it becomes really important as you're playing the game and as you're building these relationships. And I guess the last thing I'll say, even though I've been talking about the kind of social aspect of the game and this idea of scarcity, which I think are key aspects to the experience, combat's really fun. It's got that traditional roguelike combat where it's turn-based, it's highly strategic. The amount of different levels of technology, different mutations, different powers that you can have in the game, it creates these really creative experiences for the player where you can really choose how you're going to engage step by step in every combat situation. That being said, it's really hard. It's very difficult, which I'm personally a fan of. I know not everybody is, but if you're looking for something that is really challenging, that really makes you think while you're fighting NPCs, as well as, just as you're exploring the world and thinking about where you're stepping and the people that you're interacting with, it's a fantastic game. So yeah, I've barely scratched the surface of the things that you can explore and experience in Caves of Qud by Freehold Games, but I hope that this entices you to check it out. It really is one of my favorite games. There's so much to do. There's so much to interact with and so much freedom and creativity that's given to the player. And I think that level of agency is something that is rare in video games, even in a lot of the open world games that you typically find. So yeah, check it out. Caves of Qud, that's by Freehold Games. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Happy gaming.
Before the Wicked Witch of the West and those gals from Salem, there was Circe, the captivating and kind of catastrophic Greek witch who did more than just turn men into pigs.
I'm Rose.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Gloria.
Join us this fall on Circling Circe, the podcast where we talk about Madeline Miller's incredible book, Circe.
We go through the novel chapter by chapter. We laugh, we cry from laughing. We swoon over Daedalus and other Greek hotties and talk way too much about food, life, and scented candles.
I'm hydrated. I'm ready. I'm pumped to talk about Greek gods and titans.
Let's do this.
Lasagna is not supposed to be cool. It's supposed to be eaten hot, stupid.
Who just looked at a cow and was like, hey, sexy, moo right over here. Like,
it's 11:45. I need to go eat my liver.
My Prometheus pate.
And Granny's like, get out.
We Post every Wednesday, so mark your calendars
Make like Scylla.
Grab a sailor.
and dive in.
Find Circling Cersei on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Do we want to do an outro? Or
Yeah.
Is that your outro?
That's it.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.